We're back to the St. George Model Railroad Open House.
Yay!
Yay!
My allergies are bothering me already, and there's no yucca even in sight.
Yeah, this time of year yucca is out year round. It's like Southern California. It's always it's nice.
It's nice there.
It snows down there. We've done a couple of shows down there, the waterfall and a few of those things.
Yes.
And we've done the layout tour down there. I mean, everybody's got their own thing that they do. Some people just have a little almost 4x8 sheet with a thing going around.
Anything, something. Yes.
But they're all having fun with it, and some are really, really, really big and amazing, and Lionel and HO and even S-Scale for crying out loud. So check this out. And speaking of S-Scale, this, oddly enough, is S-Scale.
Oh, really?
It looks like HO, doesn't it?
It sure does.
But it's kind of overgrown HO. This is the railroad of Richard Schacht.
Okay.
And it's they call it American Flyer. It's not American Flyer. It's a company called American Models.
Okay.
And they build S-scale trains, I think patterned after Atlas. Look at that. I mean, that looks like Atlas track to me.
It sure does.
It's just they put expansion juice on it or something. So it's bigger. And therefore somewhat compatible with American Flyer.
Well, that's cool.
So 1/64th scale. And therefore all of the structures and everything else here are for American Flyer, even though the trains themselves are American models.
Well, that's neat.
Isn't that cool? Now the structure models look to be mostly plastics fill. They have that 50s, 60s plastic model. The plastics came along and replaced the cardstock and tin plate somewhere in the early 1950s.
I like it.
Oh, I like it a lot. It's so indicative of an era. And even the trains themselves really have an American Flyer quality to them.
They sure do.
Different, but the same.
Exactly.
And speaking of HO, this is an actual HO layout, the layout of Charles Job.
Okay.
Now, he's taken a completely toy train approach. He's got tracks winding all over the place. This kind of railroad has often been referred to as a turnpike railroad.
Well, I can see why.
Or just pike, for short. But he's taken that to the extreme by actually building something that looks like a freeway interchange.
It sure does.
Where you can have all kinds of railroads going in all kinds of different directions. Isn't that cool?
That's a lot of fun.
Of course, the great advantage of working in HO is there's just so much available. I've read that half of all model railroads, probably a little more than half, are HO.
It's a fun size. It's not too small, and yet it's not too big, so I can see why people like it.
It's kind of perfect for this sort of thing. And here we have the absolutely classic old school Lionel layout of Victor Lorch.
That is a fun layout. I quite like that one because it's vintage.
It's all old. Look at that. Everything on here is like World War II era.
That's cool.
It's sort of a transition era, again, just as plastics were coming out and replacing the tin plate. So the trains here are all plastic, but he's got a smattering of tin plate here as well. Here again, all of his structures are Plasticsville, Bachmann Plasticsville. Just classic today. In their day, they were, considered kind of basic, but now they're really collectible.
Now they're just collectible, yes.
Yeah. Here's a magazine ad from back in the early 60s, Woolworth's Wonderful Toy Village.
Oh, Woolworth, no kidding.
Yeah, you had to buy your Plasticsville at Woolworth's.
Oh, man.
The 5 and dime.
No kidding.
And the box art is to die for. As a kid, I'd look at this and go, yeah. But now I look at that, it's just amazing. Just so indicative of an era when we were kids.
It is. I mean, look at that.
I love it. I just love the look. The kits themselves could be assembled in about, 2 minutes.
Pretty close.
Yeah, you didn't paint them. This is an assortment. And notice that if you bought all of these different small pieces together, you saved a nickel.
Oh boy, that was a bit of money back
Yeah,
then.
$1 instead of $1.05. But you could pick up a candy bar for a nickel. Mm-hmm. So as a kid, I mean, of course you want to save the nickel.
Well, I only got 50 cents a week anyway for my allowance.
So this is a 2 weeks investment here.
Exactly.
And this is the O scale layout of Dan Mangiaracina.
Oh, look at this.
Now, you'll notice that several of these layouts that we've looked at are quite large, but they're on wheels, so they can be rolled out into the middle of these really large 3-car garages, sometimes 4-car garages, and then when they're not being used, they can be rolled over in the corner and the car is pulled inside.
That's a good idea.
That's clever. That's a very clever system. Here again, the era is that early 1950s through the 1960s as the plastics were coming out. So generally speaking, plastic trains, now the Polar Express here is of course quite modern.
Yes.
The Lionel trains in this era were referred to as O27, or one variation on the Lionel was called O27 because the turning radiuses here are 27 inches.
Oh, I see.
So you see they just turn on a dime, and that way you can build a lot of railroad into a much smaller space because the curves are so tight. Here again, many of the structures are the Plasticsville, but if you'll notice that train station over there is an earlier model. It's actually cardstock.
Well, that's really neat.
Isn't that cool?
I like it.
I like the cardstock, and they were just really fun to build, and of course they didn't cost much.
I like the little houses because they look like the little small houses they came out with about the end of World War II.
Yeah, little bungalows.
Yes.
Oh, I'm getting a headache just watching this.
It reminds me too much of driver's ed, parallel parking.
Well, they're getting parallel parking down, I think.
I think so.
Way down.
Yes.
Lionel was always first and foremost fun. Realism took a back seat to fun.
Well, it's more to have fun, I guess.
It's a toy.
It's a toy,
It's
yeah.
a toy train. It's
is.
not meant to be a scale model.
No, you use your imagination.
Absolutely. And look at this. Victor's got all of these fun working accessories set up on a separate table over here so that he can demonstrate those. This is the milk car.
Oh, yeah.
And the little guy throws the milk cans out onto the platform. Isn't that fun?
Yes.
So that would be the coal dumper car. That's really fun. And over here we have the log dumping car. Now you have to kind of get the target lined up here, and then you push the button.
Ta-da.
Now if you do that wrong, you have logs all over the floor.
Oh, gee.
And here we have some cows. Now, they need to point out to the cowboy that the cows are getting off the car just as fast as they're getting on.
Have you ever dealt with cows, though? I mean, that's what they do.
That's what they do. Somebody needs to close the back door, or the cows are just going to keep going around in circles forever and ever and ever. Yeah,
They will.
I won't steer you wrong on that.
How moving.
So keeping in mind that the goal with toy trains is just to have fun.
Absolutely.
Realism is an option, and a very distant option. The goal here to have toys and to have fun. Now this is the incredible Lionel collection of Terry Schram with his ceramic Christmas village.
Oh my goodness.
That's the biggest Christmas village I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was really looking forward to seeing this while we were in St. George, but the layout wasn't open.
Oh dear.
This was last on the layout tour in 2017.
Oh, and we missed that?
And we missed it. And I was looking forward to seeing it, but it hasn't been on any of the layout tours, and we're not really sure why. We don't know what's become of this or what's become of Terry Schram or anything. So if anybody knows, do jump into the comments section, because we're dying to know what's become of the collection here, and if we'll get a chance to see it at some point.
I'd sure like to.
That'd be really neat. So he must have been collecting for years and years to put this together.
Oh, no kidding.
And as we drive around St. George, there's so many of these antique collections and model railroads. But St. George is a retirement town.
It really is.
And so many of the people here are retired. So it makes sense that you'd run into something like this here.
Oh, man.
That was fun. Well, if you haven't been over to the channel, pop over to the channel, and if you're not a subscriber, please subscribe.
Yes.
And the easy way to get to the channel and to subscribe is with the blue button.
Yes.
Are we ready? Sign! That big blue button right there. Well, we're not sure how you found this movie on the internet. We hope you didn't find it boring, and we will see you here on Tuesday with the Collector Show.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.